Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to another episode of Glasshouse Presents Throwing Stones. We are here today with me and my host, the host, David CAMPITI. And
I just let you talk. I'll sit back and watch the podcast.
today we have some fantastic artists from Italy. We have Maria Laura Sanapo and Marco Santucci. So, David, you have some things to say about those.
Sure. Some of you may know that I've been running Glasshouse Graphics for over 30 years at this point. So it's safe to say I've been around a while. I started with representing dozens of artists out of the Philippines. And then around the year 2000, Brazil first. Then I went to the Philippines around 2000, 2001. And wanting to continue to work with artists all over the world, I had reached out to artist Vincenzo Cuca, who can do anything, and expressed my love for the work of his that I had seen in comics and especially online. And he was hesitant about working with an agent. He said, "Oh, I had bad experiences." And I said, "All right, well, I wish it had happened. Thank you very much." A month later, he contacts me. "Hey, I talked to some people who said you're great to work with." So started working with him, and then, okay, I want to work with more artists out of Italy. So 8 or 9 years ago, I went to Lucca for the big convention. Went along with Mike Diodato for that one. And there I got to meet in person a whole bunch of artists, and Marco and Maria Laura were two of them. And I thought they were simply an amazing couple and just as amazing artwork. So it's like, I have to work with these folks. And fortunately, they were kind enough to let me do that. And so once in a while, we get to work on projects. I've gotten to see them at conventions and so forth, but I want to bring them in and let everybody experience the joy of talking to both of them. So
All right. Please welcome Maria Laura Sanapo and Marco Santucci.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Hello.
Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
It is so lovely to see you both.
It's a pleasure to have you on.
Now, when I first started working with them, in fact, when I first met them, thought this is a wonderful couple. It's like, okay, you got this handsome artist with all this talent, and my gosh, he's married to Wonder Woman. It's like, now I say this and people don't believe me, and then you realize, yes, she is Wonder Woman. Maria Laura is just amazing from every perspective, including talent. So
you know my secret identity right now. You know my secret identity. Yeah.
You even have the Diana Prince glasses on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wait till you see how she uses her lasso of truth on Marco.
Yeah.
Were you out drinking with whoops? Were you out drinking with the boys? No.
Yeah, we have something called the lasso proof every day. So he's a very sincere guy. So.
I don't need it. I always say the truth. Sometimes, sometimes too much. That's the problem.
Marco's sitting on the lasso again. There we go. Yeah. Well, thanks to both of you for being here. Now, I had the great pleasure of Marco and Maria Laura coming to my home after a convention earlier this year.
Amazing.
Thanks so much.
And that was a wonderful experience. I hope to do that again next year, of course. We're talking about coming to Italy this summer if I can get the time away. So there may be another chance to see you. But I wanted to use this as an opportunity for the both of you to talk about how you started in the comic business. in your own country here, and what it's led to, and just show some of your work, and then talk about what's coming up in the future.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Maria, you start?
Marco, you first. Marco.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I start.
Okay. You start.
Okay. Sorry. First of all, sorry for my bad English, because I'm not so good with English, but I try to do my best.
your English is much better than my Italian, which is awful because I am Italian, and even though my name is pronounced Campetti here, when I go to Italy, it's Campiti. So
CAMPITI. Yes.
of
Exactly.
course you gotta have this.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
with this is necessary. This is very
You gotta
important.
have that.
So actually,
Important.
this is the difference. This is more like in Tuscany, but in the south, it's like more.
Okay.
So
Okay.
So you have regional hand gestures.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a hand gesture here, but we never mind.
Anyway, well, I started my career in 1995, obviously for the Italian market, because at that time it was almost impossible to work for the American market, because there wasn't internet, there wasn't nothing. So you have, essentially, if you wanted to work for USA, you have to use the postal service, or use the normal telephone. It was a nightmare for the few that were working for the USA market. Was a really difficult situation. So in the 90s, I started for Italy, obviously, and I started obviously for a little publisher at the beginning. I started with a 8 pages story, a story called Nembo, and in that period, I already had an American style mixed with a European style, because in Italy we have a very classical school in terms of drawing. And in fact, we have the Sergio Bonelli Editore, that is the main publisher here in Italy. That Sergio Bonelli published comics like Tex, a Western comics, Dylan Dog, Dampir, Magico Vento, Nathan Never, a sci-fi comics. A lot of different comics, but with a very realistic style and very classical style. So I think that in general, the Italian style is a strong school for an artist.
Marco,
And
do
I
you,
start, yeah.
do you have any examples of your work from when you started out in that classic style?
Okay, I show you something. Let me see.
We're going to learn stuff today.
Sorry?
I said we are going to learn stuff today.
Yeah. Okay, I can show you my very first stuff. Let me find it. I have something on. Actually, when I started from the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I was working. I'll show you. Okay, now let me see. Okay. How can share the screen?
Presenta.
Oh,
Presenta? Ok.
Yeah.
yeah.
Condividi schermo. Ok. Non mostrare. Sembra un demonio. Condividi schermo. Facebook. Sì. Finestra. This one. Okay. Okay. Now is okay. This is one of my very first works, but I wasn't working that period. This is my very first work, and as you can see, it was really inspired to Todd McFarlane style.
Yes.
I started to draw comics thanks to Todd McFarlane, because in the early 90s I fell in love for the Todd McFarlane style. But after that, I started to study more realistic comics, like the Bonelli comics, like this one. This one is an example of a Bonelli comic. This is Tex, and this is not my work. It's the work of my master, my mentor Fabio Civitelli, and he works on Tex. He still works on Tex, and I started to follow a more realistic and classical style, studying more traditional artists like Jean Buscema, Neil Adams, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and Italian artists too, like Claudio Castellini, for example, and Alan Davis, for example, another one of my favorite artists, Al Williamson. And at some point, I turned my style in this way, more realistic. It wasn't enough good yet, but I started to draw in this way. It was 92, I see, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And at some point, I evolved my style, trying to keep some of the American inspiration, but applying that to the Italian comics, more realistic. And this is an example of my very first published work. As you can see, it's something sci-fi superhero stuff,
Yeah.
but is more realistic. And especially in the 90s, it was very, very classical, because in the 90s, everything was super adrenalinic, super hyperkinetic. It was everything was exaggerated.
Yes, of
And
course.
I kept something from that, but I kept my style very classical, and started to work for this little publisher, and after that, I keep going. I worked for a bigger publisher, a little more bigger publisher, Star Comics, another publisher, and this is my very first big comic book in Italy. The cover is not mine. The name of the comic book was Samuel Sand, as you can see. And after that, let me see. I started to draw something like in this way, and again, very very classical and realistic style. And after that, I managed to start working for Sergio Bonelli Editore, the main publisher, as I was saying before, in Italy, on the Mr. No series, and I worked there for 8 years. 8 years, and after 8 years in Mr. No, I worked also on Tex, that is the main character that we have in Italy. But I worked there only for 2 years, because, to tell you the truth, I don't like the Western at all. So I resist there only 2 years, and then I decided to try to work for USA. At this point, we were around 2008. We already have the internet, we have everything, and so I started to do test pages for Marvel Comics. Let me see if I have some example. This is Tex, the 3 books that I draw about Tex. And these are my very, very first test pages for Marvel Comics.
Wow, that's really nice stuff.
Yeah, in that period, my stuff evolved again. and I was influenced a lot from by Brian Hitch. You know,
Mhm.
the same school from Alan Davis, the same school from Neil Adams. Everything is connected, and this is an example of my very first test pages for that I did for Marvel. Okay, I stopped the the sharing of the screen because maybe Maria Laura should introduce uh, her career.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I started to work in 2013, so way after Marco, and I was, I think I was 26, so young. So yesterday, uh, and yesterday. And I remember that I attended the International School of Comics, and in the meantime, I was followed by Marco because Marco is my mentor. So I really loved his style. I loved the way he was working, the detail he put in every work he did, and he still does it. So I loved the approach he had, and he has on his work. And I asked him if he could follow me and if he thought I was good to pursue this career. Because at the beginning, I chose a different path. I was going to the university. I took a degree in languages, so I was doing completely another thing. And but I felt that something was missing, and I didn't feel complete. It's something that is a lack of something that it's really hard to explain. It's something that you feel. Okay, so um, I realized when I went my first time to Lucca in 2008. I was a student, and I went with my friends. I was in Lucca, and I saw this huge amount of people drawing, and I was like, it exists. So there is somebody behind the comics I read. So I spent all the time asking people, "Are you doing this for a living?" I don't, because the culture sometimes brings you to think that this is not a real job, which is completely wrong. Okay, so I'm trying to make young people understand that it's a real job, it's not a job. So you can do it, okay, for a living. And at the time, I was like, oh my God, I did everything wrong. So I finished university because I was at the second year. So my university was there 3 years. I finished the university and I told my parents, okay, guys, I'm gonna be a comic artist. And they were like, oh, as a hobby, it's so good. No, 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 no. It was like, yeah, no, they understood
Same in
me.
America.
Yeah, okay, good,
Same in America. Yeah,
good,
absolutely.
good. Then, as I said before, I was followed by Marco, and I was attending the. I decided to attend the International School of Florence of Comics in Florence, and I remember that there was a teacher there. Because in the School of Comics there are many projects, you know, the French project, the American project, the Italian project. So we try to do different projects to see how good you are at one of these projects, And my teacher told me, Maria, you're too American. You can do Italian stuff. It's not possible. You're too American. And it was like a compliment for me because I always wanted to work in the American comics, and actually I started working, yeah, immediately for American comics, except one story I published for Italy, but it was a really small publisher and it was like 6 pages. So yeah, I, I don't count it. So, and I remember the first time when I took the job, my first job, I was really worried because I was so slow. So sometimes when I teach to the students, because I taught at the International School of Comics, and I teach at the Cougar School. I'm doing online studies right now. Sometimes many students tell me, "Oh, Maria, I'm so slow. I'm so slow. I'm so worried because what happens if I get a job and I can't fulfill the deadline?" And I'm like, it's perfectly fine when you are starting doing this job to slow at the beginning because you have to get used to storytelling and everything. So I was so slow too. So I remember when I was 24 when I was at the International School of Comics, and I remember it took like 3 weeks to a page, which is actually now I do a page a day and a half, and it seems impossible. But when I tell this to my students, they are like encouraged. They're very okay, okay, it's fine. So it's good. So with the exercise, you can absolutely go. You get better and better. And so I after this a small gig, it's a gig, right? Um, I immediately started to work for the American comics. My first work was as cover artist for Sanapo, and then I went on um, working for Dynamite on Vampirella, Red Sonja, and then I got the work from DC Comics, and I worked on Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Batwoman, and so I I drew my favorite characters ever, and so it requires patience, but for me personally, it's the best job in the world for me, of course, for personal opinion. And well, I unfortunately I don't have with me my first job, my first work. I have some work I did for DC for Zanis. If you want, I can share it with
Yeah,
you.
I would love to see, but I'm sure everybody would love to see what you got there.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Which one? Okay. Okay. Let me see if you can see it. Let me know.
There
Okay.
we go. Yep.
Okay. This is one of my favorite because it's Aquaman Beast War Atlantis, and this is pretty recent from last year actually. And this is my inspiration here was Alan Davis. Uh, Dave Stevens also is one of my biggest inspiration. Marcus Santucci, of course.
Oh,
Of
wow.
course. And I like also Adam Hughes.
Lovely stuff.
Thank you so
Very
much.
lovely. Yeah, very lovely.
Thank you so much. But I was when I got this job, it was the first time for me drawing the underwater world, and I was like, okay, Maria. I was a little bit, not worried, but it was the first time drawing something like this, and this is another job for DC, which is it's featuring men because sometimes I mostly draw women, but I like also drawing men, especially if they are grotesque. So Joker is absolutely my favorite
That's
character.
a wonderful, wonderful
That
joker there.
that's a wonderful upshot of the Joker. It really
Thank you so
is.
much. My inspiration was Brian Bolland here.
I can see that in the rendering, though. From that angle, Gil Kane would be proud.
Thank you so much.
Uh,
Thank you. This is actually uh, the published page and the page which wasn't published because they asked me not to show the uniforms from Arkham Asylum. So they asked me only to do a close up of.
okay.
Yeah, so this is completely on paper. Only panel 3 is digital because it's a patch.
Okay,
Uh,
very cool.
Maria Lara, do you draw mostly on paper and then just scan in the finished?
Oh. Well, I normally do the layout and the digital pencil at
Uh,
first, and that yeah, and because it's easier to correct. But then I ink on paper, so you will have only one version of the page because my pencil is really rough, so it won't be possible to have um, the same page at the
hmm.
end. Yeah, you will have always a different version of it.
So by the time you're done, you have a physical original that somebody can
Yeah,
eventually buy.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I normally bring them to conventions,
Yeah.
and because people still love to do it, so people still love to buy original art. So this is a page from Wonder Woman. It's Wonder Woman. Uh, was an anthology, and the story was called Wonder Woman Say Yes to the Mask. It was yes, the anthology was called How to Lose a Guy Gardner in 10 Days. It was a story about I think about 5 people asked the original art of this page. It was really requested, and here we have another Wonder Woman cover. This is the International Women's Day
Oh,
um,
loving these.
cover. Thank you. Here my inspiration was Garcia Lopez. Is another one that I really love.
Yeah. Chris, want you to notice we had talked in another podcast about how so many artists, when they do the forced perspective, uh, kick the legs back too far, and it looks
Yep,
like characters are amputated. Well, you can see she knows how to do it right.
that's the first thing I noticed about this page.
Thank
Was
you.
yep, she did that right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's exercise, exercise, exercise.
And
So
I find it really unique, at least to me, the backwards process of starting digital and then printing it out and inking it physically. Like I find that really unique. So that's really cool. I like that.
thank you.
That's
It's,
financially smart too.
Yes, it is.
thank
But
you.
well, I think that is not only financially good, but it's good also for the quality of the final work because I strongly think that the digital is good for go faster, but is not good for the quality because uh, you can use the digital in the way you want, but it won't be enough good as the work done on paper because the work done on paper is always warmer, smoother, and better. The digital only can simulate the work on paper,
Yeah.
but the real quality is on paper.
Yeah. I know only a couple of people that I think draw digitally correctly because
Yeah,
like artist Will Conrad has figured out a way that if you put up a physical original and one of his digital pieces, you can't tell which one he drew on paper because
yeah,
he managed to master that because he came into the business as an inker, so he understood techniques. And I know he's experimented with on the digital with buying different surface covers so that he can find something that feels like it's a paper surface.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
Yeah,
he's gone through a lot of that experimentation. But obviously, I love seeing physical originals at the end, no matter how you get there.
Yeah. Because the main problem, in fact, the main problem with the digital art is the inking step. Because the digital is very good for the first step of the work. Because if you draw the layouts, draw the pencils, if you draw them on paper or in digital, it won't be there won't be any difference because at the end all the pencils, all the layout will be covered by the inks. So the real important part where you have to use the work on paper is the ink
Yeah,
because it's the
Yes.
final rendering.
yeah,
But obviously, there are some artists that are good enough to do a good work also with the digital. But I think that before doing that in digital, you have to understand very well how to ink
Yeah.
on paper.
Yeah.
The problem
Exactly.
So many,
nowadays, sorry,
yeah, so many artists drawing digitally these days.
yeah,
Uh, you see two problems. One, their stuff looks digital because they're importing the backgrounds from Google SketchUp and not doing anything with them, so that everything looks unfinished or too clean or just
yeah,
it looks
yeah,
fake. And so
Yeah.
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Because the problem is what I was saying before. Because you can use digital in many ways. You can use the 3D. You can use the photo. You can build the perspective by yourself. That is the best way to work. But the problem is that if you use those tools that give to the digital the velocity, obviously those tools many times are tools that can be used by all the people. That means that your work won't be unique. Your work will be similar to the work of another artist that use the same tool, to another artist, so a lot of artists nowadays you use the 3D, a copy and paste the 3D on the backgrounds. And for me, actually not for me, is something real.
yeah,
It's terrible. It's terrible because the 3D can't replicate the depth of can replicate the correct perspective, but not uh,
Because
the
you're not
depth.
yeah, you're
Sorry.
not synthesizing
Yeah.
the everything correctly. Because if you can see that, you will realize that the foreground which you actually drew is not matching with the background. So there is
Right.
a conflict between the two. It's like weird. So you don't make them match because the light is not the same. Even if you use for example, we use light wave. Okay, so you can also put the light on the 3D model. But if you put the light on the 3D model, it will be something artificial. You have to give an interpretation of it. So you have to match everything in order to make everything coherent and very, I don't know how to say that, but it's smoother. So everything, the harmony, it's very important in a page, in
yeah.
a book, whatever, in a cover, which is also it's difficult to reach. So I understand that, but only with the 3D there is something so called something like mechanical in the background,
Mm.
and in the foreground you see everything very organic. It is like
Yeah, I think you've both hit on why I receive so many submissions from people that are digital, and they all kind of look like the same person was drawing them because
yeah,
they're
it's like
all
a
using the
machine.
same things.
It's like a
Yeah.
Right.
machine drawing. So it's like no,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Many times the problem of the digital brushes is that they are all the same brushes, and how to say that when you ink on paper, you have different choices of brushes, paper, hand sensibility,
you have the pressure
and
of your hand. Yeah,
yeah,
the taste.
and
Yeah,
when you work on digital, it's like to draw with a pen on a glass,
Mm.
and the final rendering of the inks is always cold and stiff. In fact, a lot of artists that work in digital many times don't have they don't use the modulation of
the
uh,
sign of the sign.
of the
You mean
lines. Yes,
of the
Yeah.
the
The
light.
tapering.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
Tapering. Yeah.
the line work many times is flat, and
yeah.
the other problem with the background sometimes is that if they use the 3D, they can't synthesize. the backgrounds in the correct way, basing on the depth, because the 3D tends to do everything refined, even if it's very distant. Instead, when you draw, you have to synthesize the backgrounds in the
Mm.
distance. That's the problem with the 3D. And since they are not used to create a real perspective, they tend to do the work like the 3D programs, even if they draw. Because
Yeah.
sometimes, for example, if you sometimes if you want to do, for example, the windows of a buildings in the distance, sometimes they take a texture of windows and copy and paste the windows on the back on the building. But when you do that, you don't synthesize the windows. To
Yeah.
do that, you have to draw, actually, to draw
Yeah.
them. You have to ink
Right.
them. So for this reason, uh, sometimes we use the 3D. Also has we use the 3D for the pencils. But when we go to ink, actually ink the pencils on paper, you automatically create synthesis in your drawings.
Yeah.
So everything works better in that way. That's why
Yes.
we tend to ink on paper.
I think that is very smart.
Yes. And as a colorist, I get pages that are digitally inked,
Mm,
and the line quality is just horrible.
I
It's
know.
just it's really bad line quality. So I much prefer working with traditional inks myself.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, one of the problems with the switch to digital is that now in decades past, you had artists that were great pencilers, but not necessarily great inkers,
yeah,
or who were too valuable as a penciler because of their strong storytelling skills, like Jack Kirby.
yeah,
Uh, John Buscema, Gil Kane, all these classic guys that, uh, yes, they could ink, but it was more important to have them pencil because they were also plotting to tell a great story visually.
yeah,
And so you had people like Joe Sinnott and Tom Palmer and so many others that would come in and they were better at inking. So you ended up with some brilliant pairings of styles over the years. Gene
yeah,
Colan working with Tom Palmer, for example, created a synthesis of styles that worked great. And I don't think there was another inker that worked on Gene Colan as well.
yeah,
And this was everything on paper, and these people having specialties that brought to it that they brought to their work. Now everybody working digitally, people feel okay. I'm doing it digitally, so I need to do the whole job. And
yeah,
and even though they haven't quite mastered the storytelling and the penciling style, they're also adding the inking on top of that. And so it's like having to learn three different skills at the
yeah,
same time. You know,
yeah,
it takes a long while for some people to become good or even great storytellers, but that doesn't mean their finished penciling style is wonderful. So that's a couple of different learning curves and thought process there. And then trying to be an inker on your own stuff, mastering that.
yeah,
They haven't spent enough time on the first two to get the third one right.
yeah, yeah,
So they've got lesser storytelling and lesser drawing over here, and now they're putting lesser inking on top. And the result is, I'm sorry, you're not doing it as well as Marco or Maria Lara are.
yeah.
So,
And sometimes another problem of the people that tends to work in digital is that they are very good pencilers, but when they start to ink themselves in digital, they think that they solve the problem of the inking, because a lot of people that started to work in digital, they work in that way because they weren't weren't able to ink themselves on
Yeah.
paper. And when they start to work in digital, they think that they solve the problem. That actually they are keep to work like pencilers with darker pencils,
Yeah.
because what you have to think when you ink is very different from what you have to think when you pencil.
Yep. It's a whole different craft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, have you any other art that you want to share? Any current projects, upcoming projects?
Oh, yes. Yes. For example, I didn't mention that I work also for Archie Comics, which is very good. I really enjoyed working with them. And I also worked on uh, Betty and Veronica, Sabrina,
Mm.
have the cover over here. But this is my favorite. This is Darkling. This is a new character, and this is completely ink on paper. So the white you see and everything, it's completely. I only did something probably here in digital just to make the white pop up a little bit more, but
Mhm.
everything is absolutely ink on paper. So I have some Zenescope cover, for example. This one is one of my favorite. Sometimes they give me the team up of two characters, and it's different, okay, from the DC comic world, the Archie world. So I'm very lucky because I can do many different things. So this is more, a little bit more provocative, okay. So
Mhm.
it's a different kind of character, okay. And but one of the things I really love to add to my character is the sense of humor. It's something that I really love to give. So I like make fashion expressions is absolutely my specialty. I love drawing fashion expressions, and I really enjoy. I really enjoy it. And yeah, this is these are the work I love the most. I have plenty of them, but I don't want to to keep you see them all the night long. So for us, it's night, of course.
Well,
But
it
yeah,
it's beautiful, beautiful work,
thank you
Maria.
so much. Thank you, thank you.
How did you, or when did you start working with the Kubert School?
Was I think under COVID? Yes, because Anthony Marquis, the director of the school, decided to help the student with the online classes. So he's still doing them because the Kubert School is in Dover, okay, New Jersey, and not everyone can reach the school physically. So he's doing online classes to help everybody. Uh, in the United States, but also the world. I have some students. Sometimes I have students from Hong Kong or Spain, or from different time zone. That's why I normally do my classes at night because, for in Europe it's like 4 p.m. For me it's 10 p.m. So like I used to doing classes at midnight at first.
Mm.
Yeah. But with COVID, time was like, yeah, it was so everything was so strange. You didn't feel that was midnight. Everything was so plain, and everything was the same. So that midnight was like midday because you were forced to stay home.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so, yeah, it
my,
was.
my, my daughter even went through something like that for a year and a half. I think she was taking animation classes from uh, the gal who runs my one of my two animation studios over in Manila. And
Wow.
so Jasmine would get ready, and at 10 at night, she would start her classes because it was 10 in the morning in Manila. And so she'd be up till 5 a.m. It's like, okay, now I'm going to bed. And so her whole schedule was thrown off because she'd be
Yeah,
waking up at 2 in the afternoon.
yeah. But
So
it's a pleasure. I do it with pleasure. I'm grateful to do it because if you don't live there, it's it's a great initiative, in my opinion.
I
Super
think
good.
that is wonderful.
Yeah.
What are your next projects, or what's currently on your drawing board?
Well, I finished our work for DC Comics right now. Another for Archie, which is special because it's called Archie is Super Justice. It's Mr. Justice, so it's super realistic thing. And I'm doing covers for Zenescope, and who knows? As a freelance, everything can change. Tomorrow, I don't know. Probably
Uh,
I'll be in a new project. Actually, I don't know. So
I might throw you something soon. So,
yeah.
Marco, how about you?
Oh, lately I'm working a lot on covers for different publishers. Covers like I show you something. Uh, uh, here. Yes, this one. For example, covers like you can see the screen.
Yeah,
Hold on.
Yeah.
There we go.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. 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 Maybe Maria Laura.
No, it's me. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
let me remove. I'm sorry. Let me remove that net. Okay, there we go. That's
Okay.
better.
Okay.
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 Maybe
For
can you?
example,
Okay. Sorry.
yeah. Now it works. This is one of the covers that I did for DC Comics. Mm. Actually, it will come out in August maybe, but it's already showed around the web, so I can show it. And I lately I'm working on the covers from the point of view of the line art, but also from the point of view of the colors, because I'd like to be more complete in this work. Obviously, I won't work on interior pages on line art and colors because it's impossible for me. It's too much time. But on the covers, I prefer to have the control of the final piece. So when I can, I do the line art and the colors, and I'm doing that for DC. For example, I did these covers. This one is old but good. Or for example, I did covers for Batman and Robin series,
Yeah,
and
terrific.
I
Wow.
did I did obviously the line art and the colors.
Oh,
Um,
I love that color, the highlights you've got on Batman coming from off the
Yeah,
hood.
that is gorgeous.
Thank you. And I'm doing covers also for example, Ghost Machine. I did a cover for Red Coat, for Onsbury and Hollow,
Oh yeah.
for Hyde Street, and in the covers I like to use a lot the gray tones instead of the classical line art. It depends from the cover. Sometimes I do covers totally in black and white. Sometimes I do cover more painted. My final goal should be do covers totally painted on paper, but I still have to work on that because it's very difficult to paint for real on paper or or on canvas anyway.
Sure.
Well,
And
you mastered that wet street. I love that.
thank you, thank you. And I'm also working on some covers for Zenescope, like this one. Like, let me see. Green fade is this one. And I really enjoy this one because they are very iconic covers, but I enjoy them. I enjoy them. When I can, I try to tell a story inside the covers because the iconic one are nice, but are, in my opinion, too simple. So I prefer to create a story inside the covers when I can. And in the last period, in this period actually, I'm working also for Mad Cave Studios on some covers for a new miniseries that will come out on the late this year. So I can't say too much about that, but I'm working on covers Flash Gordon related. Let's say that.
Got it.
Okay, very very nice, very
So
nice.
very classical characters.
What are your upcoming convention schedules? Where are you going to be showing up in the next few months?
Well, next Saturday we'll have next weekend. For the first time in my life, in our life, we will have a conventions in our town, and it's really I'm really excited because I won't have to take a plane to go to a convention. So
Wonderful.
we live in a very small town called Cortona, and there is the Cortona Comics is the third year of the edition of this Comic Con. Is actually it's a good convention. It's like there are like 50 artists between artists from American market and from Disney. So it's really mixed. And then we'll go to London in July and MCM London. Then we will have in August, Marco. We have something in Boston, right?
The Boston is Fan Expo Boston, yes.
And
And
it's in August.
In London is the London Film and Comic Con.
Yeah, you're correct. Sorry, it's London Film and Comic Con. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I always get confused with London has so many conventions.
And probably if everything will go well, but you should be sure. At the end of November, we'll be in San Francisco for another show.
Is it
And
September.
on
September we
September,
are in. We will attend a festival in Montenegro. I can't pronounce the name. It's like something like Erjekienovsky. Sorry. I'm Jovan. Is the organizer? I'm sorry for that. I can't pronounce the name, but I can't wait to be there. So the name is really, really long, so I can't pronounce it, but it's in Montenegro. So yes,
Is New York Comic Con in your plans for this October?
San Diego,
no, New
No.
York.
New York. Enough for now.
Okay.
I would like to come
I
back.
miss you with that one? Oh no.
Yeah.
That's one of the few that I still do. Anyway, I know that we've taken up a lot of your time. I appreciate that you both come on here and all the teaching that you've done today. I absolutely love it. So artists will learn something as they listen to this podcast. So thank you so much.
Oh,
No,
thank you. It's
thanks
our
to you.
pleasure.
Yes.
A huge pleasure to be here. Absolutely.
Yes, we greatly appreciate you coming on and talking with us for this time. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks
Guys.
to you. Thanks to you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye.
That was just wonderful.
That was fantastic.
I so loved talking to the both of them. Um, it was nice to see the things that I've talked about in a previous podcasts about foreshortening and all that, and you see these artists doing it and doing it right. So
Yes.
okay, so
And the telling a story on the cover, not just iconic poses.
yeah, that's a nitpicky thing of mine. I know for a while editors preferred the so-called iconic poses. In other words, characters just generically running, jumping, standing still, like they're in a prom photo or whatever the thing is that they're drawing. Ended up being great for Marvel and DC for a while because all that artwork was being recycled for licensing. And so it's wonderful for that purpose, but for the purpose of selling that book so that the reader knows what's going on in that thing or intriguing him enough to want to pick up that comic off the rack and spend the money on it. Um, uh, a lot of editors, a lot of artists have kind of forgotten that the cover is there to sell the book.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
So that's part of what we're here for, trying to teach as much as we can, which is why I do these portfolio reviews. You got a couple for me today?
I do absolutely. We have first one here.
Oh, fantastic. Let's see what we have here. All right, so this is one of many artists that send me work. Understand that there are some weeks where I'll get 300 samples, and the vast majority of them you don't even want to see. So I bring some in that are good that require only a little tweaking. I'll bring in some that and I saw the person right off and said, "You're hired," and found them something right away. Then other folks that hit this wide middle range of they obviously have talent, but they're not pushing something far enough in any direction to actually get them work, or they're getting a little bit of work in their excuse me in their native country, but it's not up to the standards that our clients are going to want to buy.
Right. Exactly.
So we'll get a portfolio like this. Sorry, it's a color piece, wonderful, but just characters looking at one another. All right, a cool caricature, but comic publishers don't do caricatures, and Mad Magazine isn't buying. So where does that leave you? All right, this is a pretty good piece of Hellboy, just standing around posing for his prom photo. Yeah. I didn't want those up there, but let's see. All right, another character just standing there. Um, all right, that one's pretty good, but why? It just feels so stiff. The background is fine, the characters are fine, but it just seems such a frozen moment that if we had some expression on Green Lantern, if he were approaching, if he were doing something, he's standing there with one hand turned, but there's kind of nothing there connecting him to this. So I'm not sure why he's there. Right, Batman is kind of checking on it, but it's again frozen, and it seems like if you go back to thinking about how Neil Adams or somebody else greatly known for Batman might be handling it, there'd be more of a sense of life to it that isn't quite there. It's reasonably competent, but if there are 30 artists out there that the editor is considering for the job, and some of them will do better work than this, then those better guys or gals are going to get the job. So I
Absolutely.
always have to keep that in mind. I might come across a couple of wonderful pieces, a couple of good pieces, a lot of not so good pieces. In a case like that, what are you going to get from that artist? where this was borderline and possibly could be used. I look at this, it's like, all right, the foreshortening isn't working. But what did we just talk about? Superman's legs look like they've been cut off at the legs. So backgrounds feel, I don't know, oddly generic. Um, Cape is flying in an odd way, kind of. Um, Spider-Man is there, and yes, Superman looks like he's pulling Spider-Man along by the web, but is he? You think it out. It's like, all right, Spider-Man has shot the web. Superman has grabbed it and is pulling it along, but Spider-Man is still holding on to the other web. I'm not quite sure what's being depicted here. And Spider-Man is busy looking at Superman's rear end where they're going. So there's something disconnected about the piece.
Right.
And that comes under the, not the drawing or the inking stage. That's the thinking behind the layouts, which I believe could have been stronger. Right, well enough done for some purposes, but not good enough to get him cover work. I could see this guy getting cards, the cards that several publishers do. No problem there. But again, there's nothing inspired by the piece. It's just a shot of Daredevil standing there with his billy club and nothing special to put it ahead of other people who might do something more with it.
Right.
Okay, Monster Head. I'm not even sure why that's here. What you saw was a disturbing lack of sequential pages. And
Absolutely.
so if if an artist is submitting his or her work and you say 90% of what an artist is going to get in real life is sequentials, then probably 90% of the portfolio should be sequentials. I can do with one or two covers if they are great covers, an inspired design or telling a story, preferably. And then, 5 or 6 pages of sequentials is generally enough to tell if an artist can do it.
So, what would you say is the percentage? Because I know a lot of artists submit portfolios going, I want to do cover work. What would you say is the percentage of artists who would get cover work right off the bat? And just be a cover artist?
One this year out of everything I've received. So
Okay.
many hundreds of things. And it's an artist that has been doing it in his native country for quite a while.
Okay.
The problem comes in where an artist will say, well, I want to do comics, but I'm not real good at telling a story. And so they haven't mastered any kind of storytelling. So of course their samples are very generic because they can't even tell the story in one panel.
Right.
So then it comes down to how great a design is it? Oh, it's, Professor X and Wolverine in this shot. And gee, Professor X is in his wheelchair and Wolverine is going, grr. Okay, how many thousands and thousands and thousands of times have I seen that? What are you bringing to the party that nobody else is bringing that makes them want to hire you to do that cover instead of all these other guys?
Right.
If I see something that generic, no, I'm going to go to Marco Santucci. I'm going to go to Maria Lara to do the covers, or Will Conrad or Mike Diodato or Joe Bennett, for heaven's sake, with that amazing power he has in his storytelling that he can bring to covers. So any artist that's submitting this stuff is not doing it in a vacuum. He's submitting his stuff up against what every other artist is submitting that day, that week, that month for consideration. And also all those established professionals who are in the business, some of whom are needing work because their current assignment ends.
Right.
So an editor is going through looking at my schedule, my how soon do I have to get it started? How soon do I have to get it finished? What is my budget? What is the style that I'm willing to accept? And working with those parameters, who's available? Who can I hire for this? And obviously, you want to go with the best that you can get for the money. And then, they go down the list. They're going to go to the people that have proven themselves in the past, who are dependable. I'm sorry about this. I thought I'd shut this off. Potential spam. How nice. So they're going to go to the people that they've entrusted in the past who have delivered. If those folks aren't available, they'll go to other folks who are established, see if they are available. And it's pretty far down the pecking order that somebody's going to hire a new person, unless that new person is really amazing. So if you end up with a lot of people that are submitting pages for covers, and they're not that good, well, I want to do cover work because I can't necessarily do storytelling. Yeah, but the people who get the covers have to sell the book, which means they're usually better than the people that do the insides if the guy doing the insides isn't doing it.
Right.
So, you've got to be better than the guys and gals that are currently doing it. And there are so many that are doing just wonderful covers that you've got to develop the thick skin of understanding it and putting their best work up on your screen up against your best work. And how are you faring? Because if you're not as good as Marco or Maria Lara or Joe Bennett or Diodato or Will Conrad or Cliff Richards or any of these others, then your chances of getting the job are pretty small if those guys are all available. So
Exactly.
that's the practical reality of the business.
And I'm glad you said that, because it needed to be said. A lot of artists don't think like that. They're aware that they're not in a vacuum, submitting in a vacuum, but they don't think about the competition and like professionals that are also vying for that job when they do it. So
Yeah. I remember I used to be at some conventions with Diodato and Will Conrad, and artists would come up and show their stuff, and I'd say, look behind you, those guys, they're your competition. They're the ones who are getting the jobs. So what can you bring to the party that in your own way is as good or better than what they do? So if you're not there or at that level, and that's what the editor needs, then you're not going to get the job. There are occasions when somebody who's really not up to snuff will get an assignment, and then they end up really struggling through it.
right.
And so, and that rarely leads to a good ending for them or for the editor. So it's something to consider. What do we have here? All right, so this is another artist that submitted to us, and all right,
This is the same artist.
same artist. Okay.
Yes, just different portfolio.
Oh, okay. All right, individual pieces. All right, the top piece is nice enough. That's a good face. Not as good a face as in the bottom piece. All right, this is supposed to be a sequential page, but it's, to me, it reads as just disconnected drawings. We've got a drawing of feet. We have a drawing of an eye that's inset in the drawing of a feet. We have monster mouth. We have woman with very odd mouth, and then a hand. It's like, okay, this is the body parts page, and we get to a pretty well drawn face that doesn't really match the face that's in the panel above it. And I don't know where it's taking place because there's zero background. So this page did nothing to further, uh, the artist's chances. This isn't a page that's going to get him work. All right, so I get this. I don't know what this was done for, but there's nothing here that an American editor is going to see and say, "Oh yeah, I've got to hire him." All right, we're on to a Spider-Man page. Let's see what we have here. All right, we have some buildings. We have Spider-Man sort of swinging along. Green Goblin coming, and Spider-Man spider sense is not going off. Okay, not sure why. Okay, next panel. They're up well, I guess not that high now because he must have come down, even though in panel 1 we didn't see him coming down. We saw him going across.
Right.
Panel 2, he's coming down. Okay, I guess he's just starting to come down. So the goblin is coming in. Panel 3, the backgrounds have disappeared, so we have speed lines making up for them. But why are there speed lines behind or in front of them? Shouldn't it be just behind the goblin and behind the stun pumpkins he's throwing? All those other speed lines are not helping the story any. I think people pick them up from reading manga or something, and it really doesn't help the storytelling, and it's not giving a real sense of speed. To me, it reads, I didn't feel like drawing the backgrounds again.
So are you ever a proponent of speed lines, or do you think a background should always be drawn?
There are ways of doing it where you can have speed lines of the things that are actually moving, and then an indication of background, or staging it in a way that you don't have to draw as much background. Go back and look at the best artists that have drawn Spider-Man, and see, how did they handle the action? How did they handle the backgrounds? When Steve Ditko started drawing Spider-Man way back when, he was drawing an accurate skyline before he realized nobody cared, and he started making it up. But John Romita and John Buscema and Gil Kane and all those guys who were drawing classic Spider-Man, even Ross Andru. If you go to Superman versus Spider-Man, that oversized treasury that Ross Andru and Dick Giordano did with a lot of help from Neil Adams and Terry Austin, you'll see there's a lot of action in that book. Superman slamming Spider-Man and vice versa through buildings and all this. But the backgrounds are all there. There's a lot of power in that story, but they didn't resort to the Japanese speed lines that look like a cheat.
Okay.
Spend more time telling your story and make the panels stronger so you don't have to add speed lines to try to sell it. And when I see speed lines where there's nothing causing the speed lines, it really bothers me. When I see speed lines in front of the Green Goblin, it's like, okay, is he going backwards? Lines are indicating the movement of the characters.
Right.
Yet here, there's in that last panel, the speed lines in front of him, in front of Spider-Man, even though he's not moving forward. In terms of telling a story, it doesn't make sense for American comics. I realize there's a different storytelling sense in manga, which are also reading it flipped and trying to do it here. You're telling something that's confusing. I look at the speed lines in front of him and can't match that up to why isn't the character moving backwards? So that bothers me. He's also not drawing the faces particularly well here, and he had a couple of good faces in the portfolios we went through. So that tells me consistently good faces is a problem. Okay, foreign work, it's or done for his market. It's I guess it's all right. Uh, Problems with that perspective, really, because that looks like behind them is maybe a 4-foot ship. So it doesn't quite work. Okay, so interesting backgrounds, characters running, and another character with the wind blowing, but he's just kind of standing there, and it really kind of feels pasted in. It's like, again, something is missing there,
Right.
and I'm not quite sure what, but it's not selling me as a successful page. Okay, and we've got just another piece of character just standing there. Another color piece. Face isn't as great as I'd like it to be, though I do like the crows and the background effect. So it's an interesting enough design. I wish that the face was more engaging, but it's kind of okay. A shot of Wolverine running. I don't know if that's a swipe or not, because the figure itself is better than a lot of what I saw in the rest of the portfolio.
Exactly. I don't. It could be inking for all I know.
Yeah, but he didn't say it's only inking over somebody else. So
Right.
in the absence of information, I have to assume it's his pencils and inks. But because it looks so much better than the other stuff, I question how original the piece is.
Right. Because there's been a pretty wild variation in quality in this portfolio. So
So because of that variation, it's not something I could take to an editor and say, yes, you have my confidence that this guy would deliver consistent work with great storytelling, because there isn't evidence of that in the portfolio. So in a case like this, I might give him a few pointers of what I'm looking for and say that this portfolio is not up to the level that I could sell to my clients. And understanding that my clients are DC, Marvel, Simon and Schuster,
right.
AWA, Dark Horse, and all the rest. I tend to know what they're looking for. Now, if I had more like this Wolverine piece in great storytelling and consistent backgrounds and all, and great faces and all that, then there'd be something there.
Right. Exactly.
But this one, that doesn't help. What's our timing? How long are we so far?
Well, the interview went really long, so
What are we now?
there's nothing. Oh, never mind. It's right there. An hour 19.
All right. Well, I think that's probably good enough for this one.
Okay.
So
Well, yeah, we'll get to the other one. I'll work on the PDF to make sure it can upload.
all right, and we appreciate all of you for joining us for this one. I thought this was a wonderful show with Marco and Maria Laura. I learned something today, which is always wonderful. And join us next week. I'm going to be traveling a little bit, but I'll be back in time for next week's show. And well, when I get back, I'll figure out who our guest is. So it'll be a surprise to me too at this point, but we'll try to make them as interesting as we can.
All right. Thank you for joining us. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. That helps us out a lot. So have a good night and have a good week.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye.